Whenever we analyze chance, so flipping a coin, rolling a die, or waiting for a bus, words like heads or rolling a face aren't very useful for calculations. We need numbers. That's where a random variable comes in, and we denote this by a capital X. Take rolling a single die. The physical outcome is a face with dots on. Our random variable capital X is the rule that maps each physical die face to a number. And so capital X is equal to the number landed on the die. So here's the key distinction. Capital X is the variable or rule itself, representing the random process before you roll, and lowercase x, shown here, is a specific outcome. So a concrete number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 that x could equal. So when you see the probability that capital X equals lowercase x, as shown here, it simply reads, what's the probability that our die roll capital X turns out to equal the specific face value of lowercase x? Random variables are split into two main categories, discrete and continuous. First, let's take a look at discrete random variables. Think of discrete as counting or distinct values. A discrete variable takes on distinct, separated values with clear gaps in between, like the face value of our single die roll, or counting defective items on an assembly line. To describe a discrete variable, we use a probability mass function, or PMF, denoted by the probability that capital X is equal to lowercase x. Look at how the table on the left matches the graph on the right. For any specific die face outcome x, let's say x equals 5, the table lists that the probability that x equals 5 is equal to 1/6, and this corresponds directly to the height of the spike at x equals 5 on the graph. And now, because one of the possible faces must land facing up, adding up all 6 probabilities in the table, or summing the heights of every spike on the graph, always equals exactly 1. So the sum from x equals 1 to 6 of the probability that capital X equals lowercase x is equal to 6 multiplied by 1/6, and this equals 1. If you'd like to support the channel, you can now become a member to get early access to every video. To join, you can use the link displayed here, or just hit the join button right below the video. Now, what if you aren't counting distinct outcomes, but measuring something along a smooth spectrum, like exact height, weight, or waiting time? We call this the continuous random variable, because measurements are continuous. There are infinitely many real numbers between any two values. For continuous random variables, we use a probability density function, or PDF, denoted by f of x. Now here's the critical difference from a probability mass function. Function f of x represents density, not direct probability. For a continuous random variable, the probability of the variable equaling any exact single value, let's say c, is always 0. This is because a single point has a width of 0, giving it an area of 0 under the probability curve f of x. To get an actual probability, you need an interval, and in our probability density function f of x shown on the screen, the interval is a to b, and we can calculate the shaded area under the curve between the lower limit a and the upper limit b using integration. And so for any continuous random variable, the probability that x falls within the interval of a and b is precisely the integral of its probability density function, in our case f of x. And this is the integral from lower limit a to upper limit b of f of x dx. The total area under the probability density function curve is always equal to 1. If x can exist anywhere from negative infinity to positive infinity, we express it using the integral from negative infinity to positive infinity of f of x dx is equal to 1. If the probability density function only exists within a specific restricted range, for example 0 to 5, as shown here, we change the integration limits to match the range. So in this case, the integral from 0 to 5 of f of x dx will equal 1. Let's now take a look at this summary table of random variables and the two different types. So the notation capital X in a discrete random variable relates to the rule or process, like rolling a die. And in a continuous random variable, it relates to the continuous variable rule and specifically measuring. The notation lowercase x for discrete random variables relates to a specific integer outcome. So when we roll a die, we can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Whereas in a continuous random variable, it's a specific point along an interval where x is in the interval a, b. And when we look at probability functions, the discrete random variables, the probability that capital X equals lowercase x we get from a probability mass function. And for continuous random variables, we have function f of x, which is a probability density function. And how do we read these graphs? Well, for a discrete random variable, we read spike heights directly on a y-axis. And for a continuous random variable, we calculate the shaded area under the curve. And for a single point where the probability of uppercase X is equal to X, for a discrete random variable, this can be greater than or equal to 0. But for a continuous random variable, this is always equal to 0. And the total probability rule, for a discrete random variable, this is the sum of the probabilities where capital X equals X, and this equals 1. And for a continuous random variable, the total rule gives us the integral from negative infinity to positive infinity of f of x dx is equal to 1. Now let's look at some problems related to discrete and continuous random variables. So in this first problem, we have a discrete random variable x, and it has a probability distribution given by k multiplied by x when x is 1, 2, or 3, and k into x minus 2 when x is 4 and 5. And for all other values of x, it's 0. And in part A of the question, we're asked to show that k is equal to 1/11th. In part B, we're asked to construct a probability distribution table for x. And in part C, we're asked to find the probability that x is greater than or equal to 2 and less than 5. If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. And so beginning with part A, we want to show that k is equal to 1/11th. So we can use one of the properties of discrete random variables, where the sum across all values of x of the probability of x equals x is equal to 1. And what this means is that if we sum all the probabilities where x equals 1 to 5, this comes to a total of 1. So when x equals 1, the probability is governed by the function kx. So the probability of x equals 1 is equal to k multiplied by 1, and that equals k. And similarly, when x is equal to 2, the probability of x equals 2, this is governed by the same function kx. So it's k multiplied by 2, which is 2k. And the same for x equals 3. The probability of x equals 3 is k multiplied by 3, and that gives us 3k. So when x equals 4, this is now governed by the function k into x minus 2. So the probability of x equals 4 is equal to k into 4 minus 2. So we've just substituted 4 for x, and this gives us 2k. And when x is equal to 5, we use the same function, k into x minus 2. So the probability that x equals 5 is equal to k into 5 minus 2. And this gives us 3k. So now we have the probabilities k, 2k, 3k, 2k, and 3k. We can equate these to the value of 1. As we know from the properties of a discrete random variable, they all sum to 1. And so summing the probabilities, we have k plus 2k plus 3k plus 2k plus 3k is equal to 1. Simplifying this, we have 11k is equal to 1, and therefore k is equal to 1/11th. Part B of the question asks us to construct a probability distribution table for x. Now we've calculated that k is equal to 1/11. So I've substituted k into the function. So when x is between 1 and 3, the function is x divided by 11. And for 4 and 5, it's x minus 2 divided by 11. So for our probability distribution table, our values of x appear in the left-hand column as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And when x is equal to 1, we substitute the value of 1 for x in the function x divided by 11, and we get 1 over 11. When x is 2, we substitute 2 into the function x divided by 11, and we get 2 divided by 11. And when x is equal to 3, we substitute for x in the function x divided by 11, and we get 3 divided by 11. And when we get to the probability that x is equal to 4, to find this probability, we need to substitute into the function x minus 2 divided by 11. And when we substitute 4 for x into this function, we get 2 divided by 11. And similarly, to find the probability that x equals 5, we need to substitute 5 into this function. And this gives us a value of 3/11. And for part C of the question, we're asked to find the probability when x is greater than or equal to 2 and x is less than 5. Now for this one, we need to be careful of the inequalities. X strictly less than 5 means x cannot equal 5. So we want the probability when x equals 2, when x equals 3, and when x equals 4. And we can use our probability distribution table to pick these probabilities off. So when x equals 2, probability is 2 over 11. When x equals 3, it's 3 over 11. And when x equals 4, it's 2 over 11. And so summing these probabilities, we have 2 11ths plus 3 11ths plus 2 11ths. And this gives us a total probability of 7 11ths. In the second question, we're told that the continuous random variable x has a probability density function defined by f of x is equal to c into the bracket of 4x minus x squared, where x is between 0 and 4, and 0 otherwise. In part A of the question, we're asked to show that c is equal to 3 divided by 32. Part B asks us to calculate the probability of x greater than 2. And part C of the question asks us to find the exact value of the probability that x is greater or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 3. If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. So for part A, we want to show that c is equal to 3 divided by 32. Now to do this, we can use one of the properties of a continuous random variable. And that is, if we integrate across the entire interval of the probability density function, we get a value of 1. So in our example, the complete interval is from 0 to 4. So if we integrate using these limits, c into the bracket of 4x minus x squared dx, we should get a value of 1. And using the power rule to integrate this, we get c into the bracket of 2x squared minus x cubed divided by 3. And we need to evaluate this between the limit of x equals 0 and x equals 4. And this will all equal 1. So if we plug in 4 for x, we get 32 minus 64 divided by 3. And when we plug in 0, we get 0. And we need to multiply this whole bracket by c. And this equals 1. And simplifying this, we get 32c divided by 3 is equal to 1. And therefore, c is equal to 3 divided by 32. Part B of the question asks us to calculate the probability that x is greater than 2. And so for this one, we need to sum across the interval from x equals 2 to x equals 4. And now we know that the value of c is 3 over 32. We can add this to the probability density function. So we're integrating 3 over 32 into the bracket of 4x minus x squared dx. And if we go ahead and integrate this, we get 3 over 32 into the bracket of 2x squared minus x cubed divided by 3. And we need to evaluate this between the interval of 2 and 4. And now if we start plugging in the limits of integration, beginning with 4, we have 3 over 32 into the bracket of 32 minus 64 over 3 minus, and plugging in the lower limit, we get 3 divided by 32 into the bracket of 8 minus 8 over 3. and this evaluates to 1 minus a half, which equals a half. And for part C, we need to find the exact value of the probability where x is between 1 and 3. So for this one, our limits of integration are 1 and 3, and we need to integrate 3 over 32 into the bracket of 4x minus x squared dx. And I've substituted 3 over 32 for c in the probability density function. And integrating this, we have 3 over 32 into the bracket of 2x squared minus x cubed divided by 3. And we need to evaluate this between x equals 1 and x equals 3. I'm plugging in the limits of integration for this. So starting with x equals 3, we have 3 over 32 into the bracket of 18 minus 27 divided by 3. And we subtract from this the result when we plug x equals 1 into the function. And we get 3 divided by 32 into the bracket of 2 minus 1/3. And evaluating this, we get 27 over 32 minus 5 over 32. And this equals 11/16. So the probability that x lies between 1 and 3 is 11/16. Let's now look at some examples and try and identify whether a variable is discrete or continuous. So if you'd like to play along, pause the video now. So our first example is the number of goals scored in a match. So is this a discrete or continuous random variable? If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. So this is a discrete random variable because it's something that we can count. An example number 2 is the time taken to run 100 meters, discrete or continuous random variable. If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. So the time taken to run 100 meters is a continuous random variable because it's something that we measure. And for example 3, the temperature at midday. Is this a discrete or continuous random variable? If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. The temperature at midday is a continuous random variable, as it's also something that we can measure. And for example 4, we have the score on a die. Is this a discrete or continuous random variable? If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. So this is a discrete random variable, as it's something that we can count. And for the 5th example, the number of text messages sent in an hour. Is this a discrete or continuous random variable? If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. So this is a discrete random variable, because it's something again that we can count. And for the last example, the weight of an apple. Is this a discrete or continuous random variable? If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. So the weight of an apple is classed as a continuous random variable, as weight can be measured.